I remember one very.
Is Kyle Rittenhouse the Greta Thunberg of the right? Like, he's like the icon for like whatever. I don't know. Imagine living in a country where someone threatens to kill you and they don't have firearms. Wouldn't that be like an amazing country to live in, where like you don't have to protect yourself with firearms, you don't have to be afraid of firearms, you can just, if someone threatens to kill you, they have to use another object, which is a lot harder to kill someone with. Wouldn't that be awesome? Wouldn't that be amazing? Anyway, imagine if a country like that existed. Come to Australia. So I normally just do religion, philosophy, and a bit of science on my channel, but this whole situation with the Kyle Rittenhouse has just been insane. It's just been all over the internet, and I just saw this pop up and I thought, hey, why not check out this interview? Not only because I think Tucker Carlson is a slimy, dishonest worm, but also because it's interesting to look at this is with unbiased eyes as much as possible. Now, I consider myself somewhere probably on the left of things, but I don't like to categorize myself in any one type of group, because I think when you do that, you open yourself up to being to having more of a biased opinion. I like to try and look at every situation individually and kind of build a rational thought process around what would be the best outcome, worst outcome, and things like that. If I can add some worthy commentary from an Australian YouTuber who does videos mostly on religion, philosophy, and science. So let's check it out.
Carlson, tonight, in retrospect, it's remarkable just how dishonest, how thoroughly and intentionally dishonest the media coverage of the Kyle Rittenhouse story turned out to be.
I would agree with him actually on that.
Why? Rittenhouse was not a white supremacist. He was never in a militia. He never crossed state lines with a firearm.
So there's got to be some, he has to have some irony about like the media being dishonest when he's the most dishonest, slimy piece of shit that exists. Like his face, his little, that little thing, nothing, like if I need to get like a pump on at the gym or whatever, and I'm like doing a workout, all I need is like a little video looping of like him pretending to act like he's confused about someone he brings on who's making probably some relevant points. Nothing triggers me more. He's actually, he's commendable. He's actually quite commendable. He's the perfect troll. I've changed my mind actually. I fucking love him. I love him so much.
The protest in Kenosha was not peaceful. It was a riot, chaotic and violent. Many of the rioters, by the way, carried guns. Rittenhouse was hardly alone. Rittenhouse didn't go to Kenosha looking for trouble. His father lived there. Rittenhouse himself worked as a lifeguard in Kenosha. On August 25th of last summer, Rittenhouse went downtown to stand guard over a car lot. Here's the context. The night before, police in Kenosha had done nothing as the mob burned businesses, including another car lot, all the way to the ground. So the business owner needed Kyle Rittenhouse's help. He was looking to a 17-year-old for help, if that gives you some perspective on how bad things were, and he asked for it. As Rittenhouse stood there, rioters threatened his life. Then they attempted to kill him. In the end, Rittenhouse shot 3 attackers as he tried to run to the safety of the police. A number of media outlets claimed the men Rittenhouse...
Is it just me, or does Tucker Carlson need a haircut? Or is that like a look that he's going for? Surely he can afford a haircut, right?
Rittenhouse shot were black. In fact, all 3 were white, and all 3 had serious criminal records. We could go on. Again, the media coverage was, from beginning to end, a tapestry of lies. If you watched the trial last week...
I hate that I am agreeing with him a little bit. It was just crazy. Like, everyone on either side was just insane, in my opinion.
You know that. But what about Kyle Rittenhouse himself? What is he like? Apart from his testimony in court, few Americans have ever heard his voice. Over the next hour, we're going to let Kyle Rittenhouse speak for himself. You can make up your own mind what you think. But before we start, one observation, which you can't resist making. It's hard to ignore the yawning class divide between Kyle Rittenhouse and his many critics in the media. Rittenhouse comes from the least privileged sector of our society. During high school, he worked as a janitor and a fry cook to help support his family.
Least privileged sector of a society. He worked as... Maybe you're forgetting like homelessness and...
...to college at Arizona State, and he's very proud of it. In the world, Kyle Rittenhouse, last year he got into college at Arizona State, and he's very proud of it.
The most underprivileged people in the society are going to college?
In the world Kyle Rittenhouse grew up in, it is not a given.
I'm an Australian, but this sounds like insanity to me. The most lower class people in our society, like not lowest class, but the most underprivileged people in our society are like drug addicts, homeless people, people with mental health issues that stop them from being able to work. right? Anyway.
And that kids go to college. It's not even close. During the course of our long conversation, Kyle Rittenhouse struck us as bright, decent, sincere, dutiful, and hardworking. Exactly the kind of person you'd want many more of in your country. He's not especially political. He never wanted to be the symbol of anything. Kyle Rittenhouse just wanted to keep violent lunatics from setting fire to cars. In the America he grew up in, that was considered virtuous. So if Rittenhouse seems a little bewildered at points during our interview, thinking back over the last year and what happened to him, that's probably why. A lot of the things he assumed were true about this country turned out not to be true at all. So in that way, he speaks for many of us. Here's Kyle Rittenhouse. So tell me, Kyle, how you wound up in Kenosha that day.
Well, it actually started on August 24th. I was working my job as a lifeguard at the Recplex in Kenosha County, and then the riots were still going on and a curfew was implied. So I went to Dominic Black's house, and I stayed the night over there and saw the videos of the riots and the arson going on.
What'd you think of it?
It was upsetting because Kenosha is my community.
What do you think of it, champ?
And I just was upset seeing my community up in flames.
Yeah, I bet you were. So you're at your
The people who watch it, like, tell me that's not
friend's
cringy.
house that night. You've come back from working as a lifeguard.
Yes.
And then
Not Kyle, like just the way Tucker approaches conversations. Perfect troll. Perfect troll.
decided to go in. First, you're cleaning up graffiti, correct?
Yes. So I stay the night August 24th. We wake up in the morning and we're talking. We're like, let's go help our community. Let's go see what we can do. And we ended up at Ruther Central High School where we were cleaning graffiti for a couple hours, and then we met with the owners of Car Source, and we offered to protect their business from fires, making sure the rest of their other two properties didn't get burned down like they did the night prior, and they agreed. We came back. We went back to Dominic's house and hung out there for a little bit, and then we went to Car Source to help protect the property and make sure it didn't set on fire again.
So you get there. What do you see?
When I get there, I see in the beginning, the morning of Ruther Central, I see just spray paint everywhere. I see smoke coming from the car source that was burnt down, and it was quite upsetting because that was somebody's business that got destroyed.
Yeah. So you said to the people who own the car lot, I want to protect your cars, and they said, yes, please.
I said, hey, I asked if they needed any help, and they said, yes, if you can.
Where were the police?
It's such an unfortunate thing, right? Because BLM are protesting Black lives, right? They're protesting the injustice seen in African American people or people of color in the United States. And so the ideology behind BLM is actually quite similar to the ideology that Kyle Rittenhouse would use, which is he's seeing people that he considers part of his community, and he's trying to protect their assets. He's trying to protect them. He's trying to do whatever he can to help. It's unfortunate because you can see the perspective of both sides. The ideology is actually quite similar. They just want the best for what they consider their community. And I think part of the problem is seeing each other as separate communities. And I think that's why I don't like things like Fox News or CNN or organizations that try and create a split in cultures and stuff. I live in Australia, and there's a sign that I drive past almost every day to work that says "No Sharia here," as if mosques are popping up left, right, and center. To me, that if I was a Muslim and I was driving past that would make me feel very separate to the rest of Australian culture. And I just think it's like it just divides people more than brings them together. Support
they needed. The National Guard should have been called August 23rd, but the city of Kenosha failed the community. The governor, Tony Evers, failed the community, and there should have been a lot more resources to help with that.
That's for sure. So you've been criticized for
Do you think he listens, or does he just have dialogue going
carrying a firearm into the scene? But it's obvious from the tape that a lot of people, you were not the only one with a firearm. There were rioters with firearms. Was that obvious to you?
Yes.
So you saw other people with guns?
I did. There was a lot of people on both. Like there were rioters with firearms. I remember one very.
Is Kyle Rittenhouse the Greta Thunberg of the right? Like seriously, is Kyle Rittenhouse the Greta Thunberg of the right? Like he's like the icon for like whatever. I don't know.
Particularly Joshua Zeminski was walking around with a pistol in his hand all that night with Joseph Rosenbaum.
Where did you first see Rosenbaum?
The first time I saw Rosenbaum was the first time he threatened to kill me. It was at the corner of the car source lot that I was at primarily that night, and I was asking people if they needed medical, and he came up to me and Ryan Balch, and he said, "If I catch any of you MFers alone, I'm going to effing kill you."
Had you ever seen him before?
I have
It was
not.
MFers.
So you'd never seen this guy. He walks up
Look at he does that. Like, what do you mean? You've never seen these people before?
and threatens to
Whoa.
kill you out of nowhere.
Yes. It was quite shocking. I was like, why would somebody threaten to kill me? I'm just asking if people
Because like people get really worked up with political BS.
need help on both sides. I was there just to help anybody that needed, and shockingly, the only people I helped that night were rioters.
What kind of sense did you get from Rosenbaum? I mean, that sounds deranged.
When he threatened to kill me, I was like, what the heck just happened? I've never, nobody's ever threatened to kill me
Yeah.
up until that point. And I was like, that's not something you say to somebody.
How long?
Imagine living in a country where someone threatens to kill you and they don't have firearms. Wouldn't that be like an amazing country to live in where like you don't have to protect yourself with firearms, you don't have to be afraid of firearms, you can just, if someone threatens to kill you, they have to use another object which is a lot harder to kill someone with. Wouldn't that be awesome? Wouldn't that be amazing? Anyway, imagine if a country like that existed. Come to Australia.
How long after that was it that he tried to grab your rifle?
It was about an hour and a half later, and then there was actually a second time he said to the group, he said, this is the second time he threatened to kill everybody. He said, I'm gonna effing kill you. I'm gonna cut your hearts out, you effing N-words.
Cut your hearts out?
Yes.
Did any of the rioters try and calm him down or stop him?
What I noticed is the rioters were trying to, like, they were like disassociating with him because he was like spewing the N-word around, and they just didn't seem to want to have anything to deal with him, the rioters.
So he comes, he tries to grab your rifle, he gets shot. You decide at that point, and unless I'm misremembering, you want to go turn yourself into the police.
Yes. After I shoot Mr. Rosenbaum, he tried to grab my gun. I was running away. There was a gunshot behind me. After I shoot him, I run around the car because I was going to go render first aid to him. I wasn't able to because then there was a mob forming and calling for my execution to get him and kill him. And that's when I tried to run to the police line and get to the police. And then I am attacked again.
By the guy who kicked you?
By Jump Kick Man, yes.
Whose identity we didn't know. It turns out the prosecution knew it and hid it.
It's hard because like when someone says, get that guy, he just killed someone, get that guy, he just killed someone, or they get that guy. Like if you're in a crowded hallway in a school in America, and it's Thursday, so it's probably a school shooting day. I don't know what day you guys have school shootings on. Sorry, I'm a bit triggered at America with all your gun stuff. Anyway, let's say you're getting, there's a school shooter and everyone's saying, get that guy. There's a lot of time you can't think and you're just like, that guy has guns. Maybe he's like a threat that I have to take down and kill. Like it's chaos. Like you can see, like, were there even street lights and like, no, they're all over, but it's like, look at that. Like I wouldn't know what's going on there. Was there like a dude with like on like a scooter or something? Like
then, to get him and kill him.
It's just a bizarre situation. Like if I was in this situation, if I was in my front yard and I heard someone say, get him, he's killed someone, get him, and like he was running away with a gun, I would consider running up to him and trying to stop him. And from Kyle's perspective, Kyle's thinking like, these people are going to kill me. They're screaming, get him. So he's trying to defend himself. Like it's a effed situation. Like it's screwed.
And that's when
it's screwed from the outset.
I try to run to the police line and get to the police, and then I am attacked again.
And then, like, everyone posts stuff like, oh, you know, he was friends with the Proud Boys, or he goes drinking with his boys, or whatever. And it's kind of like, if you've got the whole, like, first of all, he's obviously been indoctrinated into, like, American politics, this side, that side, or whatever. But when you have one side screaming that you're a murdering, racist, white supremacist piece of crap, and then you have another side saying, hey, man, like, come here, buddy, we're friends with you. Like, it's a... Of course you're going... What, you're going to, like, try and be friends with the people who are calling you racist? Like, this is the problem with the two-side perspective.
By the guy who kicked you?
By Jump Kick Man, yes.
Whose identity we didn't know. It turns out the prosecution knew it and hid it.
So we found out November 7th, the prosecution... We went into the judge's chambers, and the prosecution said, we identified Jump Kick Man, and the prosecution threw a fit a little bit. They didn't want us to interview him. They were like, well, he's a victim, and didn't want my investigators or my attorneys to interview him or ask him questions. They just wanted to do it private, non-recorded, and the judge said, no, it's going to be recorded. And then a couple hours later, they say, oh, he asked for immunity, and we're not going to give it to him, so we're not going to be calling him as a witness.
Yeah, well, probably didn't want to talk about his criminal record.
Yeah.
So you're running, trying to get to the police lines. You see the mob coming after you. Let's execute him, they're saying. And then out of nowhere, you get dropped to the ground by the guy who kicks you in the head. Mm-hmm. Did you see him coming?
I did. To backtrack a little bit, actually, as I'm running, Gage Grosskreutz came up to me with his phone and put it in my face, and he said, what are you doing? Did you just shoot that man? And I told him, I'm going to the police. And he said, oh, okay, and ran off, and I kept running to get to the police. And that's when Anthony Huber strikes me with the skateboard as I'm running before I'm on the ground for the first time. And then I'm hit with a rock by somebody in a white tank top. And that's how I end up on the ground. And I have 4 people around me from what I remember. And I move my firearm in their direction, and they back off with their hands up so I don't shoot them. And then Jump Kick Man keeps coming, and that's when I fire 2 shots at Jump Kick Man.
Wow. And
yeah, you see, if he was just out there to, like, kill people, cold blood, like, wouldn't he just shoot them all? You know, I don't know.
You miss him.
I don't think people are making these calculated decisions at that time. This is the fight or flight response.
He kicks you.
Yes.
Then what happens?
After Jump Kick Man is running off, Anthony Huber comes up and he grabs the barrel of my gun, and then he hits me with his skateboard holding his trucks, and that's when I shoot him 1 time.
Where did he hit you with the skateboard?
He hit me in the back of the head, in the neck, the back of the head towards the neckline.
Did you think you were going to be killed at that point?
I did.
Then what happens?
And then after Mr. Huber attacks me, Mr. Grosskreutz puts his hands up, and then I have my rifle pointed in his direction for about a second. And then once I lower my rifle, I noticed that my ejection port is opened about an inch, and Mr. Grosskreutz said I pulled the charging handle, which never happened. I hit the forward assist to close the ejection port, and he sees me doing that or something. And this time, he runs at me, and he has his gun pointed directly at my head.
Did you see the gun?
I did.
Do you think he was going to shoot you?
I did.
Of course you did.
He had it pointed directly at my head, and that's when I shoot him 1 time. And he is no longer a threat to me at that point because he ran off after I fired that shot.
Did you realize you hit him?
I didn't know until later.
So then what happens?
There is a person directly in front of me, and I point my rifle in their direction, and he puts his hands up, and he's backing up, and I then turn around, start going to the police, and then I hear shots behind me, and I turn around and briefly raise my rifle to see if I'm being shot at, and then I realize I can't see who's shooting at me, so then I turn around and go back to the police car, towards the police line.
It's just, hearing this, it's just hard to believe this is happening in an American city.
Yeah.
So then you finally get up, you hear shots, you turn to see who's shooting at you, and then you finally make it to the police line.
Yes. Once I make it to the police cruiser, the police officer says, "Get back, get back, get back." One of them has a gun out and the other has pepper spray pointed at me. And I say, "Hey, I just had to shoot somebody. I just had to shoot somebody." And then they say, "Go home." And I didn't know this until...
Go home?
Yeah. The officer said to go home. I don't think he knew what happened or heard me. There's a lot of chaos going on.
Yeah, it sounds chaotic.
But apparently he pepper sprayed me. You can see it in the video, but I don't remember being pepper sprayed by him.
Good pepper spray.
So then what happened?
I say, okay, I go back to the car source lot number 2. We've been referring to them. Car source 1 is the one that got burnt down. Car source 2 is the one that I was at primarily the entire night. And car source 3 is the one where I was attacked by Mr. Rosenbaum. I go back to car source lot number 2 and I tell everybody there what happened. I said I had to do it. I was just attacked. I was dizzy. I was vomiting. I couldn't breathe. And I was like, I wanted to turn myself in Kenosha. I wanted to turn myself into the police in Kenosha, but I wasn't able to because they weren't accepting visitors apparently with the barricades and the fence up. So we ended up turning myself into the Antioch Police Department.
So you drove back across state lines, as we're now calling it. Funny. So you couldn't even turn yourself in?
No, it was like I had to go to Antioch Police Department, which to my understanding is the closest police department to Kenosha.
Why do you think people were burning car source? What does that have to do with civil rights?
I don't know. I think it was opportunist.
I think this is where the dishonesty comes in.
It's taking advantage of the BLM movement. I agree with the BLM movement.
Yay! Awesome. No, that's actually awesome that he said that. Hang on, let me just
agree.
I didn't know that.
Everybody has the right to protest and assemble, but I do not agree that people have the right to burn down. I don't appreciate that people are burning down American cities to try to spread their message. I think that
like look, right to protest, all that stuff, all good. I'm not going to comment on the rioting or whatever as much, but for Kyle Rittenhouse to say that he supports BLM on Fox News, that's awesome. That's actually really awesome.
There's other ways to go around and do that.
Well, I agree with that completely. So you turn yourself into Antioch Police. What do you think is going to happen at that point to you?
I didn't know. I was in shock. My head was spinning from being hit in the head multiple times. I had some minor injuries. I just didn't know. I didn't know I was going to be arrested for defending myself because everything was on video. But part of the reason I think I was arrested is because of the mob mentality. And they were like, yeah, we're just going to arrest him, even though there was videos already out showing me being attacked and having to defend myself.
So when was it that you were arrested?
I was arrested on August 25th at around 6 a.m. I was formally arrested without a criminal complaint being drafted. They didn't know what they were charging me with yet. They just arrested me.
At home?
At Antioch Police Department.
What'd your parents say when you called them and told them what had happened?
I didn't call my mom after I saw her, and she was in shock. She was like, she wanted to go into hiding, and I said, no, the right thing to do would be to turn myself in. I didn't do anything wrong.
So you knew that from the very beginning?
I knew that. A lot of people are like, oh, Kyle had time to meet with his attorneys to come up with this amazing defense of self-defense. No, that's not the case. This has been 100% self-defense from the beginning, and I didn't know there was 100 cameras. But I did know I was attacked, and I defended myself.
What do you think would have happened to you if there hadn't been the amount of video that there is?
I can't even imagine. I don't think we'd be sitting here right now having this talk, Tucker.
That's so cameras are important.
You'd never get out. Rittenhouse knows
Oh, that face.
perfectly well the only reason he's free is because he can prove what actually happened thanks to those videos. But it didn't prevent him from going to jail anyway. He did for a longer period than most people understand. During that time, he picked up a couple of attorneys who said they would help him In his view, they badly abused him and his family and their trust. I'll tell you a lot about that in just a minute, and about the prosecutors. Also, a quick programming note, we had cameras behind the scenes throughout much of this case. Our Tucker Carlson Originals documentary called The Trial of Kyle premieres in December.
It seems as though a lot of what the left-wing and right-wing media seem to do could almost be described as a form of scholastic terrorism, where they literally create a narrative and they push people towards that narrative, and they lead people to these insane conclusions, when at the end of the day people just want to live their lives and have the respect and dignity that they deserve. And it's just unfortunate that these things will keep happening as people let go of their critical thinking skills and choose sides and say, I'm left-wing, so therefore XYZ, or I'm right-wing, so therefore XYZ. So is there much that can be learned? I'm not too sure. However, it's always important to reevaluate your belief systems and where you're coming from, and try and critically examine the evidence without attaching too much of your own bias or of your in-group. It's always important to look at the facts and the information and try as hard as you can to remove yourself from the emotional underpinnings because that can just sway you left or right, and you end up in just making a fool of yourself or saying some really stupid things.